Welcome everyone to the 2020 launch of the Harvey Nash KPMG CIO Survey. We're now in our 22nd year, and this year over 4,200 of you from across 83 different countries took part. Thank you so much for your contribution. We know it's quite a detailed survey and it takes some time to fill out, but the feedback we get from you is that you really value the depth and the insight that it provides. So Steve, it's been quite a year, hasn't it?
Absolutely, Lily. Nobody expected this, including us. We actually ran two surveys, and the first was conducted at the beginning of 2020, pre-COVID, and then the second during the onset and ongoing crisis. And the results tell an incredible story that most people would not have imagined possible at the beginning of the year. We believe we've conducted the most comprehensive research into the impact of COVID-19 on the technology function, and the report highlights many fascinating insights. But here we've picked the 8 key ones.
So, first up, and unsurprisingly, we've experienced a huge spike in IT spend. To deal with the COVID-19 crisis, technology leaders have pivoted their customer strategies, they've invested in security, and most importantly, they've moved an enormous amount of people over to home working. Now, of course, all of this has come at a cost. Technology leaders reported a median additional spend of 5% of their overall IT budgets, which amounts to around $15 billion per week during the first 3 months of the crisis. This is an incredible jump, which if annualized would be equivalent to 20% additional spend. Technology leaders were effectively given a blank checkbook to do as they pleased as the crisis unfolded. But, as with everything, there is a consequence. This surge in investment was completely unplanned for and unforeseen, and is leaving many organisations with a headache. Now, boards, CFOs and CIOs alike are really looking at their longer-term investments and scrutinising existing spend, keen to prove return on investment or to make savings where they can. And I know we're certainly seeing this with a lot of our clients, where only the highest priority programmes are being given the green light as we head towards Q4.
Lily, the next finding really illustrates the impact of COVID on the path to the new reality. Unlike in previous disruptions where largely all sectors rose or fell with the tide, COVID has essentially chartered a variety of economic recovery patterns per sector. And we're seeing an alphabet soup of recovery curves emerging from U's and L's, W's and V's, each requiring a very different response from IT. And for some sectors like leisure, nonprofit, traditional retail, organizations are faced with the daunting challenge of a hard reset and finding a new viable business model. And for others, like life sciences, media, consumer goods, the challenge is to deal with an unprecedented surge of demand. The survey shows that sectors that are experiencing a surge are expecting IT budget increases. So we're talking about power and utilities, government, healthcare, the technology sector. They're all investing heavily as they deal with the new demand. Leisure, including airlines, hotels, and sports, nonprofit, education, and manufacturing are reining back as they are adjusting their models. So let's take a look at a couple of quick examples. In primary healthcare, the mass adoption of video conferencing and telemedicine by providers has introduced an efficient and largely effective way to initially consult with patients. And doctors have long clamored for this as a channel. And COVID duly delivered. There's no going back at this point. Or consider universities delivering their curriculums virtually, radically changing the higher education experience. This has made people reassess the value of what they're consuming. Without the lecture halls, the library, sports, and the bar, consumer expectations are changing, and universities are being forced to revisit their value prop, though not necessarily lowering their tuition fees. Regardless, 60% of respondents feel it will take at least 3 months or longer before they can begin to accurately forecast the future. We're entering a new age where boards will need to get used to the discomfort of long-term uncertainty.
Now, with a quarter of tech leaders expecting the majority of their staff to become home workers, organisations are starting to realise just how different a world without location really is. For the recruitment of new staff, their potential talent pool is now worldwide. I know we have one client in New York who historically would only have ever hired within 20 miles of the city, and now their most recent recruit is a software development engineer over in Saudi Arabia. It's been a total game changer for them. And of course, this wasn't a cost decision, this was far more around access to the right skills and the right talent. Now, for others, their sights are set a little less internationally, but it does raise some important questions. For big cities like London or for tech hubs like the Bay Area, salaries have historically been a lot higher than elsewhere in the world. But why continue to pay so much more if your talent could really come from anywhere? Now, in the early stages of the pandemic, when everything was new and there was an urgent job to be done, we definitely saw a productivity spike amongst technology teams. But now, as we emerge into the long stretch, we have to consider how we are engaging and rewarding our people when physical presence plays less of a role. I know that a lot of my clients are anxious to understand what the long-term effects of remote working will be on attrition rates, as what has historically tied us to our organisations, so perhaps the affinity for our office culture, for our colleagues, for our commute, just become less consequential if we're all working from home. Now, what's clear from the report is that mental health is an issue. So 84% of technology leaders were concerned by the mental health of their team. Of course, perhaps no surprise, there are all sorts of things that could not be seen on a video call that might have been picked up at an informal chat at a water cooler. What's encouraging, though, is that 7 in 10 have already put in place programs to support their people. Mental health is something that's been a growing concern in tech for a number of years, and it might be one small positive to come out of the pandemic that it's now getting the attention that it deserves.
Lily, while few organizations would have planned for something as significant as COVID, some entered the event in much better shape than others. These digital leaders, the 3 in 10 organizations with the most successful business digital strategies, already had much of the foundational elements in place to deal with the disruption and make it look relatively easy to pivot both customers and employees to a new model. The survey reveals that digital leaders were twice as likely as their competitors at being very or extremely effective in scaling good ideas and stopping poor ones quickly. Digital leaders entered the pandemic much further down the line with emerging technology investments and are already seeing those returns. They're much more likely to put their foot on the accelerator when it comes to investing in emerging technology like distributed cloud, enterprise SaaS, AI, and automation. In contrast, those that were early in the journey or had not yet demonstrated an ROI were likely to pull back on investments in digital tech. So, as a result, we're likely to see a divide grow, with digital leaders being better positioned to pivot and scale into new opportunities, leaving behind organizations that resist or are unable to invest in their innovation journey.
This year, the Black Lives Matter movement has reignited the conversation about social injustice all around the world. Now, it's the responsibility of all of us to hold ourselves and those we work with to account when promoting inclusion. I know that we as headhunters feel this particularly keenly. But beyond being just the right thing to do, our research this year adds further proof that diverse teams simply promote better business performance. So more than 2/3 of you feel that being diverse has improved trust and collaboration in the technology team. 6 in 10 feel that it has improved business engagement, and over half feel that it's provided better access to skills. Who wouldn't want that? But at least from a gender perspective, the news is not good. The proportion of women in technology leadership roles remains stubbornly low, although some headway appears to be happening in Latin America, which is benefiting from specific programs designed to get women into the world of technology. Perhaps that's something that we can learn from. Now, looking at diversity more widely, the survey also hints that the flexible, access-for-all nature of remote working may promote better inclusion, whether that be for carers, for working parents, for disabled people. Perhaps video conferencing really is the great leveller. But it's also possible that this new digital world creates its own challenges. Of course, there may be those who just don't want to turn their camera on. There may be others who are just better at recreating those all-important informal moments online than others are. And of course, there'll be some who are able to access the physical office where some aren't. One thing's for sure is that we're all taking part in one big social experiment, and only time will tell where it takes us.
As most of us have experienced, COVID-19 caused the unexpected mass relocation of office workers from their safe shores of their corporate networks to home offices, bedrooms, and kitchen tables all over the world. And as a result, the attack surface of organizations expanded exponentially. Our research shows that on top of the mounting existing cybercrime challenges faced by the technology leaders before the crisis, more than 40% have experienced additional cybersecurity incidents, mainly from spear phishing and malware attacks. Dealing with this challenge has caused security and privacy to become the top technology investment priority. And for the first time in the CIO Survey's history, cybersecurity expertise has become the most in-demand skill set. 3/4 of respondents have indicated that the attack surface and the importance of cybersecurity has increased as a result of COVID-19. But how has the attack surface actually changed? So while threat actors have definitely stepped up the frequency and complexity of their efforts, judging by the big jump in spear phishing and malware attacks, it appears that the growth in risk has come mainly through threats against newly remote working employees and the associated cloud-based applications that they're using. This implies that the focus needs to extend beyond technically securing the perimeter and enhancing access controls, but a greater emphasis on actually educating people inside the organization to create awareness on how they're being targeted and what to do.
Of course, at the centre of all of this lies the technology leader. Many of them are emerging from this exhausted but excited by the challenges and the opportunities of what has become a technology-centric crisis. In fact, 6 in 10 report feeling more influential as a result of the pandemic. But this isn't reflected in board membership, which is actually down from 71% in 2017 to 61% today. But actually, this doesn't concern me too much. It's important to note that it's the CIO role itself, rather than the person who's occupying that role, that's experiencing this downward trend. The CIOs themselves, the successful ones at least, they're retaining their board membership, but they're evolving their remits and their titles. So they're emerging as CTOs, as CDOs, and even as chief executives. I'm certainly seeing a great number of CIOs, former CIOs, pop up in all number of places, all with very significant cross-business influence. So what does it take to be a great CIO? Well, the best leaders I know, they are highly adaptable. They can respond to change at pace. They can scale innovations up and down. They can learn from their mistakes. They're also very collaborative. They recognize that the ownership of technology is becoming more distributed right across the top line, and they can work in partnership with their peers in marketing, in finance, in operations, rather than against them. And they have high emotional intelligence. They're strong in active listening, and they can anticipate problems amongst the team before they arise. But a great CIO knows that at the centre of their role lies technology. Of course, business acumen and commercial sense are really important, but they know that what differentiates them around the board table is their understanding of the opportunities around tech. A great CIO will be just as comfortable discussing business strategy with a chief executive as they will be explaining blockchain to a 6-year-old.
Not long ago, business and technology executives everywhere were struggling to keep up with the ever-accelerating speed of digital business transformation in response to the rewrite of global economic, social, political, and technological institutions. And then COVID-19 emerged and changed everything. Or did it? For the technology executives, CIOs, and CTOs, the drivers of IT have clearly been reordered. But for many, the imperatives are still there. The top 2 priorities for boards did not change with the onset of COVID-19. Both improving operational efficiency and improving customer engagement have both been long-standing priorities for the technology leader. And as each organization charts its way to the new reality, most are accelerating their digital transformation efforts. For some, this has actually been useful. One respondent remarked, "More innovation has happened in the last 6 months than in the last 10 years. Of course, everything has changed, but it's also comforting to know so much has stayed the same.